Petra was not actually a city of dead stone. It was a triumph of liquid survival, a masterclass in trade monopoly, a technical nightmare, a question of hidden geography, and an absolute gamble against the desert. For centuries, the modern world looked at its towering pink facades and saw only a majestic cemetery carved into the cliffs of Jordan. They were wrong. It was a thriving metropolis of living, breathing, and incredibly wealthy innovators who conquered one of the most hostile landscapes on Earth. They turned bare stone into gold. But how? How did a nomadic tribe of desert bandits with no initial knowledge of architecture or engineering turn a barren, waterless canyon into the wealthiest trade oasis of the ancient world? To understand this miracle, we must travel back over 2,000 years into a landscape of stark contrasts. In one place stood the mighty expansionist empires of Rome, Egypt, and Greece, desperate for the exotic luxuries of the East. On the other side lay the scorching, lawless sands of the Arabian Peninsula, a barren wasteland where caravans died of thirst under a merciless sun. Between these two worlds stood a rugged wall of red sandstone cliffs known as the Shara Mountains. To any ordinary traveler, this was a barrier of death. It was a place of jagged rocks, hidden ravines, and absolute dehydration. Yet, out of this terrifying emptiness emerged a mysterious group of nomadic pastoralists known as the Nabataeans. They did not build empires with massive armies. Instead, they built an empire of logistics, utilizing the very hostility of the desert as their shield and their greatest asset. Now comes the part almost no one imagined. The rise of this stone kingdom was driven not by faceless masses, but by brilliant, stubborn individuals who rewrote the rules of survival. First was King Aretas IV, ambitious, politically sharp, and deeply obsessed with Greek culture. He realized that to protect his nomadic people, he had to make Petra look like a civilized superpower. So he minted his own coins and invited Hellenistic artists to carve grand palaces directly into the wild cliffs. Then came King Aretas IV, the master builder, stubborn, defensive, and protective of Nabataean sovereignty. He ruled during Petra's golden age, overseeing the creation of the famous Treasury. His first decision was to reject Roman dominance by fortifying Petra's trade networks rather than its walls. Centuries later, a completely different figure enters our story: Johann Ludwig Burckhardt. He was a Swiss explorer, cunning, highly observant, and obsessed with finding the lost city. In 1812, he disguised himself as a Muslim scholar, adopted the name Ibrahim ibn Abdallah, and convinced local Bedouins to lead him through the terrifyingly narrow gorge of the Sikh, ultimately revealing Petra to the modern world. But how do you build a flourishing metropolis of 30,000 people in a canyon that receives less than 6 inches of rainfall a year? This was the ultimate engineering puzzle. To understand their genius, imagine trying to catch a raging waterfall in a series of tiny teacups without spilling a single drop. During the rare winter storms, massive flash floods would barrel down the mountains, threatening to obliterate anything in their path. The Nabataeans solved this by building a massive dam at the entrance of the canyon, diverting the destructive floods into a sophisticated network of channels, reservoirs, and underground cisterns. But this was not enough, because water standing in open pools under the desert sun would quickly evaporate or spoil. To solve this secondary complication, they designed closed ceramic pipelines that spanned for miles, utilizing gravity and perfect sloping angles to deliver pressurized, cool, and filtered water directly into the heart of the city. A name rarely mentioned in history books is Al-Khazneh, a master stonemason of the 1st century, without whom these complex channels could never have been chiseled into the sheer cliff faces with such microscopic precision. As Petra grew wealthier, the tension shifted from natural survival to human greed. Who pays? Who decides? The city became a glittering target for the surrounding superpowers, especially the Roman Empire, which hated that a nomadic desert tribe controlled the lucrative trade of frankincense and myrrh. On paper, defending a city with no massive surrounding walls and limited arable land was a logistical nightmare. Rome possessed legions. Petra possessed only cliffs. Yet the Nabataeans devised a democratic and popular masterstroke. They did not rely on a standing, expensive mercenary army. Instead, they shared their wealth. Every citizen was a shareholder in the trade routes, and the entire population was trained to navigate the treacherous desert where Roman soldiers would quickly perish of thirst. By hiding their water cisterns underground and marking them with secret symbols known only to their own people, they made the desert surrounding Petra entirely uninhabitable to invaders, while keeping themselves perfectly hydrated. There came a moment of extreme, fragile transition. As Roman pressure mounted, the Nabataeans had to move their massive wealth, consisting of tons of gold, silver, and precious spices, deep into the most secure parts of the canyon. Imagine a convoy of thousands of camels, packed with fragile cargo, navigating a path only 3 meters wide. The canyon walls rose hundreds of feet above them. The air was thick with tension. A single sudden cloudburst on the horizon could trigger a flash flood, drowning the entire caravan in minutes. The loss of a single cargo meant financial ruin. The Nabataeans moved with quiet, high-speed efficiency, their heartbeat matching the steady thud of camel hooves on wet sand. One mistake meant death. There was no room for error. By the year 50 AD, the monumental transformation of Petra was fully realized. The wild, chaotic sandstone cliffs had been reassembled into a breathtaking urban landscape of theaters, temples, and garden pools. At the center stood the Al-Khazneh, a monument carved from the top down out of a single rock face, standing 40 meters high. Its precision was flawless. Its beauty was undeniable. Millions of tons of stone had been cleared away by hand, leaving behind a city that seemed to grow naturally out of the earth itself. It was no longer just a hidden refuge for desert nomads, but a global monument of defiance and engineering mastery. Yet, we must avoid pure glorification. This oasis of stone had a dark, fragile underside. The very system that made Petra invincible also made it incredibly vulnerable. By relying so heavily on their sophisticated water channels, they created a centralized dependency. When the Roman Emperor Trajan finally annexed Nabatea in 106 AD, he did not need to fight a bloody war inside the canyon. The Romans simply cut off the main water aqueducts leading into the city, forcing the proud desert traders to surrender. Furthermore, a devastating earthquake in 363 AD shattered the underground cisterns and destroyed half of the city. This was not proof that everything was well, but a promise that even the most brilliant human creations are ultimately at the mercy of the earth. Over the centuries, the grand geopolitical significance of Petra faded, leaving behind the ordinary people who called it home. At its height, Over 30,000 people walked these stone streets, their daily lives soundtracked by the chatter of Greek, Aramaic, and Latin. As trade routes shifted to the sea, the wealthy merchant elite departed, leaving the city to local Bedouins who used the majestic tombs as humble shelters for their families and goats. The grand meaning of Petra shifted from a bustling center of global trade to a quiet, sacred sanctuary of ancestral memory. On one side stood the forgotten glory of a lost empire. On the other lay the silent, enduring rhythm of nomadic life, and in the center stood Petra, bridging the two worlds. To truly feel Petra, we must look closer at its physical textures. Look at the chisel marks on the walls of the Treasury, still sharp after 2,000 years, showing the exact angle at which ancient workers swung their iron picks. Feel the natural, swirling pink, yellow, and purple striations of the sandstone, resembling frozen waves of silk. Observe the narrow terracotta water pipes lining the Seek, still coated in a thin layer of ancient limescale. Notice the bullet holes scarring the giant urn at the top of the Treasury, left by Bedouins who believed it contained hidden pirate gold. But the most revealing, mostly unnoticed detail is a small carved niche near the entrance of the city, containing a simple block of stone. This was not a statue of a human god, but a representation of Dushara, the Nabataean god of stone, reminding us that to these people, the rock itself was alive, sacred, and protective. Ultimately, Petra is famous not for its beautiful Greek-style facades, its dramatic tombs, or the myths of hidden treasures. Its true strategic importance lies in its role as an invisible hydraulic masterpiece. It was a city that conquered the desert by learning to dance with its most destructive element, water. By answering the core question of how to survive in the wilderness, the Nabataeans proved that human ingenuity can thrive under the most hostile conditions. They did not fight In the end, Petra reminds us that humanity's greatest monuments are not built by conquering others, but by mastering the impossible constraints of our own environment.